Hi folks, Dave with dbstechtalk. Today we're going to talk about the CCA C10 Pro. I want to thank Linsoul for sending over the CCA C10 Pro for a review. Do greatly appreciate it. Linsoul hasn't asked for anything more than just an honest review, and they have not asked for the C10 Pro back. Linsoul, thank you very much. You rock. All right, so the CCA C10 Pro. Before we get into the review of it, I want to remind you to check out the links down below. There'll be links for where you can purchase the C10 Pro and also for gear that was used to review it and for music playlists that were used to review the C10 Pro. Also, there's all kinds of other information down there regarding playlists for Opos audio and for a drop. Also, there's affiliate links down there. There'll be links for all kinds of other good stuff. So check out down below. All right, so the CCA C10 Pro. This is the sibling to the ZS10 Pro. I have not heard the ZS10 or the ZS10 Pro, so I will not be doing a comparison to that. But I have heard the CCA C12 and the CA16. So I am familiar with CCA a little bit. And I have had kind of decent experience with CCA. How does the C10 Pro sound? It comes in at roughly around $40, depending on where you purchase it. And is it yet just another $40 IEM to throw into the bin? Or is it something that stands out a little bit? So here they are, the CCA C10 Pro. They do have a very unique design, black with gold, and a pretty standard transparent shell, very universal, a little bit on the thick side, not too bad. They do have this little metal faceplate, and about the only complaints that I really have, there are two of them, and the first one is the faceplate has sharp edges. As you go around it, I can just feel it kind of on my fingers as I rub it along the shell. And that comes into a problem when it goes into the ears. It just fits my ear the wrong spot. And I can feel it kind of poking my ear right down here. And it hurts. It feels like somebody's taking a little pin and just kind of lightly touching my ears. So not the most comfortable IEM there. And then the other problem that I have with them is the shape of the nozzle and bore. It's a little bit on the large side, and my right ear actually feels more discomfort than the left. I must have a little different size shapes for my ear. And so I get discomfort really quickly with ear fatigue in the ear hole when they are inserted. And we're talking within about a half hour, they're starting to hurt my ears. So not only am I getting those edges kind of poking my ears, but also at the same time that nozzle is it just doesn't fit in my ear very comfortable. And it's actually more uncomfortable with the stock Starline tip that comes with it. Whereas when I changed tips and I went with the Asla Sedna, that comfort did change a little bit and increased the amount of time that I could have the C10 Pro in my ears to about a half hour, 40 minutes. Whereas with the stock Starline tip, it was more like 10 minutes. And so you may have to change tips just for comfort. I didn't really notice any difference as far as sound changes between the Asla Sedna and the Starline tip. They both were, they sounded the same to me. Speaking of sound, are the CCA C10 Pro just another $40 IEM, or did they stand out to me? Bass. Bass is a fun bass on the C10 Pro. It is not anything that's going to blow you away for quality, but again, we're talking a $40 IEM here. Bass quality is decent. It's not the best, but it's not the worst. I found that details were moderately there. It's not a detail king, so to speak, but it's also not blurring them out or just not including them. The details are there. They just lack refinement and lack definition. Every now and then you will get a song when the bass just is like really detailed, clean, clear, and you can hear each and every instrument. And then you'll get another song and you know the details are there. You know that it's supposed to be a kind of a clean and clear sound, but it just sounds kind of muddled and hazy on the C10. So it just kind of lacks definition, and resolution's not the greatest in the bass, but it doesn't do the one note thing too often. Just every now and then on busier tracks, it'll really just kind of get confused and muddled and jumble up everything, and it'll be one note bass. But for the majority of songs, it will be fairly competent. I will put it that way. Mids. Again, this price point with IEMs, mids don't normally impress me. And unfortunately, with the CCA C10 Pro, the mids are not my favorite. The, excuse me, the back end of the mids just tend to be a little bit too recessed. Males tend to take a back seat. More bassy, darker toned instruments take a back seat, and even though they have decent tone and timbre to them, they're just too far back in the mix, and they can get overpowered by both the bass and the treble. Upper mids, as you climb out of it, tend to be a little shouty, a little aggressive, and bright. And the upper mids really can get fatiguing extremely quickly. Female vocals are very forward, so if you have a lot of mixed groups singing or just solo females or higher pitched male vocal, it can become very fatiguing. They have some harshness to them, some graininess to them, and they just don't sound really defined. Instruments like upper brass and woodwinds, pianos, and acoustical guitars, banjos, things like that, have a graininess to them. They just don't sound real clean and clear. It's not a metallic sound. It's more of a grainy harshness sound to it. Like it is being emphasized too much and being too much stressed. And it's just being a strained, grainy, gritty, they just don't sound refined and natural. Then as you go into the treble, the lower treble to upper treble is very emphasized. It's very forward, and it's a very bright sound signature, and it is also fatiguing. A lot of instruments can sound very glary and shimmery to the point where it bothers my ears. The upper echelons of the treble is very nice. You get some nice treble. It's a little bit more smooth. It still lacks refinement in the detail resolution, but it is that middle treble, about 8K downward to about 3K. Very harsh, very shimmery, very glary, and very forward. As far as the Soundstage is actually really nice on this C10 Pro. I really do enjoy the Soundstage. It's wider than average. It has decent depth to it. Does a good job of layering. Instrument separation is very good. It has a very nice soundstage. You can actually read into the soundstage and kind of determine where things are seated and placed. And it does a decent job of tracking things across the soundstage. It's a smooth transition. There's no gaps or anything. Everything just kind of flows. And it's a very cohesive soundstage. The problem for me with the C10 Pro is the lack of refinement and resolution, and that harshness that comes through in the mids and in the treble regions. It's just not a pleasing sound to my ears, and it reminds me of the lower end KZs that it's a sibling to. And I'm sorry, but this is just another $40 IEM that does some things well. I don't mind it, but I'm not going to reach for it. And so it's just another $40 IEM to kind of put in the pile and say, here you go. If you want a $40 IEM, you can have these on the list. How's it compared to the C12? The C12 is a little more refined and a little bit more smooth. The details and resolution is just a little bit more complete and refined. I just find that the C12 has a little bit better in the mids area and in the treble area as far as resolution. The CA16, the same way. It's just a more refined, complete picture for CCA. The C10 Pro is a good effort. It's just, how's it compared to the TFZ Live 1? The Live 1 is actually more engaging for me. I find it to be warmer, but it's also smoother in the treble, and it just doesn't have that great grittiness and that harshness that the C10 Pro can show. To me, it's just a little bit more musical and just a little more fun. But do I really recommend it? No, if you're looking for an IEM in the $40 price point, I would look at the Jade Audio EA1, the Jade Audio EA3, and the Moondrop SSR. That would be the route that I would look at this price point instead of the CCA C10 Pro. This has been Dave with DBS Tech Talk. Thanks for watching, and I'll catch you on the next video.